Behind the net, centers, flat, tries to Clark, shot, oh, rebound, scores! Scores for the game winner at 12 minutes and 1 second of Sunday.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah, and I'm here with Chef B, who's going to tell us about one of our sponsors here. Chef?
Yeah, O&B Puckcast is now brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. The winter months can be especially hard on our homes, from roof damage and peeling siding to frozen pipes and toilet overflows. Call Summit Public Adjusters before you call your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be stressful and confusing. Let Summit Public Adjusters take the stress out of the claim process by having our guys work for you. Get the most for your money and your repairs. The next time the big snow or the rain leaves you with some home damage, contact us for a free consultation. Summit Public Adjusters are licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Learn more at summitpublicadjusters.com or call 215-752-0560. Just tell them that the chef sent you.
Yeah, what was that number again, Chef?
215-752-0560.
That's terrific. All right, we're going to carry on with the rest of our show. Okay, we are back. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 107. Of course, you've heard from me, Isaiah, and Chef, so we have to say hello to the great Dan Silver. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. March is here. Spring's around the corner. Hopefully, good news, for everyone, both in hockey and the real world soon. So we'll see.
Yeah, we got another vaccine approved, and we were talking a little bit about that last time. We got some breaking news. It was not exactly real breaking, but 6 hours ago, John Clark tweets out that Pennsylvania will now allow 15% capacity indoors, 20% outdoors, which essentially means that if Philadelphia matches, they could have close to 3,000 people at the games, and the Phillies could have 8,000 people. So it's just we're waiting for the city and their health department to kind of put their heads together and to see if they can come up with something. So that's some good news. And I'll get your feedback on that, Chef.
I was just about to say, do we really think that they're going to move ahead with that? Everything I've seen coming out of Philly has been no. I mean, I live in the suburbs as well as you do, and we're on the fringe. I could walk to be inside Philadelphia, yet most of the time, when did they start indoor seating? Like literally 3-4 weeks ago. So it's hard for me to believe that they're going to make this huge jump in Philly. I just don't see it coming. I think they're gonna play more on the safe side, and I don't think you're going to see it in Philly.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see about that. Dan, I was watching some boxing matches that were held in New Zealand, and I thought I was watching a replay from last, 2 years ago. No, there was a full capacity. So I'm like, wow, we have become so conditioned to empty buildings. It would really be nice to have the fans back.
Oh, I know. I was watching, one of the Flyers games over the weekend. I was thinking the same thing. It'd be these players are probably getting used to not having people in the building, and it'll be great for them. When we've got Flyers fans back in the building, probably booing them when they're not playing well. But, it'll be nice. And I'm a Flyers season ticket holder, so they kind of keep me up to date with what's going on for the most part. And I haven't heard anything specific recently, but, the way that the Flyers did it was they basically took, everyone who had their season tickets for this year, and they just moved it forward to next year. So I was all paid up for this year. So they moved that forward to next year. So I don't know anything for next year. And then what they said was, if they get any availability for games this season, they're going to figure out how they're going to do it. I'm assuming it's probably going to be mostly season ticket holders. and then they're going to have to figure out how to rotate through season ticket holders, and then you'll get kind of billed for this season. But yeah, it's, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I still think we're probably not looking at fans in the building for, maybe a month or so, but it's cool that it might happen. And listen, for the playoffs is really where people are really going to care about it. So hopefully by the playoffs, they'll be able to get some more people in there.
Well, if I do read saw correctly, there's going to be fans for the Pittsburgh games, correct? In stadium. Is that what I just read somewhere on the internet? On the interwebs?
I think you are correct about that, but I'd like to check on that. Right now, I think they could have like 500. Mm-hmm. That's the guideline in Philly. In
Philly. Out in Pittsburgh, since it's a statewide, and I think Pittsburgh is, I guess, maybe doing a better job than we are around here. But I thought I read it was, I'll try to find it, but I read it was going to be as high as 3,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But, moving along from that, the Flyers are on a 3-game roll. Now, had we come back last week when I did our special 5x5, 5 minutes with 5 topics, check it out, Flyers 5x5. We'll drop a few of them here and there. The Flyers now have won 3 in a row, and had we stopped and talked about the Lake Tahoe fiasco and the Ranger game when they came back after the COVID break, we wouldn't have been in such a good mood. But since then, the Flyers have been on a little bit of a roll. Just to recap, in this East Division, 18 games played. They are 11-4-3, 25 points in 4th place, but they have played the least amount of games in the division, save the New Jersey Devils, who played 17. So they are just a couple of points ahead of Pittsburgh, who's played 2 more games, but have a 3-game steady. It's like the Phillies going to Pittsburgh to play the Bucks for 3 games, like in baseball, but they're going to, with all the compact schedule, the Flyers are going to have to play 3 games in Pittsburgh this week. And Dan, we're going to find out a lot more about what the Flyers' so-called process is all about coming up this week.
I still have no idea what to expect with this team. I mean, they still, they haven't been playing all that well this year, despite what the record shows. They got a little bit lucky early on with some games where they were outshot, games that they won. They get smoked at Lake Tahoe. And the last 3 games, they've looked really good, but they've been playing against the Rangers and 2 games against the Sabres. And, I think that we need to enjoy these games that they're winning. I see a lot of banter on Twitter about, people being negative and, they just beat the Sabres, who cares? And the Rangers, who cares? And I think that there's a little bit of truth on both sides. Like, I think people, if you're going to live your life and the only thing you're going to be excited about is the Flyers winning the Stanley Cup, like, you're going to have a lot of disappointments in life. So I think you kind of need to be able to enjoy when this team wins a game, right? That's what it's about. Get the win. It's exciting. But you also analytically need to sit back and say, man, the Sabres really stink right now, and the Rangers aren't that good either. So, yes, it's great that this Flyers team reeled off 3 very impressive wins, back-to-back shutouts against the Sabres. But let's see what happens this week. You've got 3 games against the Penguins, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I want to say, and then you play against the Capitals on Sunday, I think. So this week is going to be very telling, and it's interesting. You look at the division now, and going into the season, I think the general consensus was, not necessarily from us, but the general consensus was the Caps and the Bruins are the 2 best teams in the East. Then you're going to have the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Penguins battling it out for the 2 remaining playoff spots, and the Rangers, Devils, and Sabres are going to bring up the rear, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Yeah, the Flyers have the best points percentage. So, based on that, you could say that they're in first place right now. But the reality is the Caps and the Bruins have the most points, and then you've got the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Penguins. So it is kind of formful, and this week is really going to tell a lot with the Flyers-Penguins games.
Yeah, there's not going to be a walkover. It looks like the Penguins have been a little bit revitalized and still have plans to compete. In fact, they were so excited about the opportunity to play the Flyers. They honed in, Chef, on one of our waivers and made a claim. Mark Friedman, who was kind of like our 8th, 9th defenseman, depending on who you talk to, was put on waivers. They obviously weren't quite as happy with him this year as they were last year. And they took a chance, and he got claimed by Ron Hextall, the new GM with the Penguins, and he'll be playing for them. Your thoughts?
Well, obviously, you're right. They weren't as comfortable. That's fine. I mean, look, it was on that defense now. It's a numbers game, isn't it? I mean, it's quantity, not necessarily quality. I mean, Mark, he did a good job. He was adequate. I mean, filling in when necessary. But I just think, Hextall I think part of it is they probably wanted to announce the presence too. I was like, hey, I'm in a new place and I'm taking some of my toys with me. Guess what? So that I just think to me, it seemed like a little bit of a spite move that the very first move he's going to make is against his old team and somebody he drafted. I thought that was funny. I mean, you know what? Also, I think it's funny is Jordan Hall tweeted out that the Flyers, they're 0-3-2 against the Bruins, right? But they're 11-1-1 against the rest of the division. I mean, that's just a crazy stat to begin with. And, it's really, okay, like you guys were saying, they're going out to Pittsburgh now. This will be the real test. If they can take 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh, I'll be satisfied that the team's back on the right track. I mean, the debacle out on the lake, let's say, the debacle I call it. It was just as many phantoms on that team as there were Flyers. So it was going to be a tough game to begin with. So I did not expect them to win that game, but I wanted to see some character out of it. And I was a little disappointed at some of the effort in the game, but overall, I think that if they're going forward now, TK's back today. I think he's cleared, right? He's practiced here. He's going to meet the team out there. He'll be a game time decision. So
yeah.
I just think that show me something now. Your team's back together. Catch the stride that you caught last year at the end of the season, and show me that you want to be the team that can be that playoff team that really annoys the hell out of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're definitely hoping for that. Dan, 3 questions, just your comments on Friedman, your opinion about what's happened with Myers. Phil Myers, him being scratched on Saturday, returning for Sunday, and the reemergence of Shane Gostisbehere as a real factor and looking very much like the top 4 D-man that he was when he was at his best.
So, all right. So let's start with Mark Friedman. I think that it's very unlikely that he's going to become an impact NHL defenseman. I think that his upside is 3rd pairing NHL D-man. That being said, I think it was a mismanagement of assets for Chuck Fletcher to expose him to waivers and let any other NHL team had a shot at him, especially when you can expose other guys to waivers like an Andy Andreoff. I liked Mark Friedman last year. It was a small sample size, but I thought he actually played relatively good hockey. And I like the energy he brings. I like the speed that he brings. I like the grit that he brings. And I'm not convinced that Robert Haig and or Gustafsson are any better than him. So I thought it was a gross mismanagement of assets by Chuck Fletcher, exposing him to waivers. So, and I'm not surprised that Ron Hextall picked him up. Ron Hextall drafted him, and he probably has a little bit of, he wants to stick it to the Flyers. So, yeah. So, I'm interested to see how Friedman's career develops now that presumably he's going to get some consistent playing time in Pittsburgh, because I like Mark Friedman. Not gonna make a huge difference on the team, but maybe he could have helped solidify that 3rd pair. Phil Myers, assuming he was healthy, I'm pretty surprised that they scratched him on Saturday. Now, they are playing a lot of games in a short period of time. So I want to see what Alain Vigneault does moving forward. Like, hey, if he's going to start resting some of these guys at different points to try and keep them fresh, and it's going to be a rotation, and Travis Sanheim sits out a game, and, you know, he goes through the, you know, obviously Ivan Provorov is the only guy who's probably not, you would never sit. But it seems to me that it was more of they were punishing him for something. And, you know, I think you want to try and put your best lineup out there, especially in a shortened season. He did it with Travis Konechny. He benched him, and he came back, and he wasn't any better than he was before. So, you know, I'm not sure how much it works. I'd rather put the best lineup out there, and hopefully Myers will stay in the lineup. Shane Gostisbehere, I mean, look, guys, I was probably one of his biggest proponents before the season. Everyone was telling me that this guy was done, and I'm an idiot for thinking that he's got something left. But my eyes told me that last year in the playoffs, when he was healthy, he was playing pretty good hockey. And I think he's a pretty good hockey player. So I understand that everyone was down on him, but it gives me immense satisfaction seeing how well he's playing right now, because he's got the talent to do it. And he's not only contributing offensively, but he's been good in the defensive zone. He's not going to be hitting people, but look, I think he's a good NHL defenseman when he's healthy. So I'm kind of happy to see that, and hopefully he can keep it going, and hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think with Ghost, it's a situation where his lateral mobility is a big part of his game. And I think it's coming out now. You see him, he's really back to where he was in that regard. And I think the problems he was having before were affecting his straight line speed, which was never great. It was good enough. But now he's at peak Ghost. He's playing big minutes against really good competition. I don't think he's a first pairing D-man. I don't think in the playoffs we would be happy seeing that. And that would be something we take up later when we have Dennis Bernstein on from the fourthperiod.com to see what the Flyers' options might be. But he is playing like a top four guy, and at the very least, he may be making himself more attractive to a certain team out in the Northwest. There, Chef?
Yeah, I want to piggyback what, you know, Dan had stated too. And we're coming up a stretch here. It's like 6 games in 9 days. And then if you tack on the next, you know, the week, it's like what 15 and 19 or something like that. So it's not unthinkable that, especially, you know, these hard division games are going to require more energy, more, you know, you get fired up for these games, but it also takes a little bit more out of you. And I kind of think that Dan was on the right track, thinking that maybe it's a rotation thing, that some of these D guys, they're pulling these hard minutes and very tough physical games that, you know, maybe AV is going to rotate this person in, this person out. It's not unheard of. And if it is, it could be a very smart thing. I mean, you know, they had that time off, so their schedule, which was condensed to begin with this whole season, everybody is not even a little more condensed because they got to make up games. So, like you said, there's 2 behind everybody. So these holes and these off days, which weren't that long to begin with, are going to get even shorter. So it could be a wise move if that is the case.
Well, yeah. Let me run some numbers by people. They're in the midst of a 6 games in 9 days. They're going to have 17 games in the 31 days in March and 19 games in 33 days overall. Okay. Now, regarding Myers, what I had heard or read was that Myers was not physically engaged as much as he should have been, and it affects his overall game. So I think that was a punishment. I don't think it was, well, we're just going to rotate this guy and, you know, it's next man up. Not after 12 days off, that he wanted to see more from Phil. And he's still at a stage in his career where he's going to send a message when he feels it's necessary. So that's what I think about that. Now, we got to take a look at these couple of games. With the Rangers game, going back since our last show, now, they had the depleted squad for really 2 of the games. With the Rangers, the Flyers lost. That was a shootout, right? First game back. Shootout. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Panarin and Kakko with really good moves. And Carter Hart played fairly well. Now you get to Lake Tahoe. We know what the Flyers' record is versus the Bruins, like Shep was saying. I am so happy, and Dan, you might want to comment on this, to have a guy like Brian Elliott playing so well, because Carter Hart was pretty awful in that Boston game in Tahoe. His angles were off. He was getting beat to the short side, glove side. He didn't seem to have his depth to where he wanted it to be. In other words, he needed time off to work with Kim Dillabaugh. And we've had Elliott come in, play really well, and making key saves versus the Rangers. G comes back. Then they have more of a full squad in these back-to-back 3-0 shutouts. Of course, Hart comes back yesterday and made some really nice saves. It's at Flyers with 2 workmanlike victories over these Sabres. Just some impressions about that and Carter Hart. Hopefully that coaching of his technical ability, getting him back up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Carter Hart's the kind of guy who is going to be able to rebound throughout the course of his career unless he just totally goes off the rails, which I don't see happening because he's just got such a good head on his shoulders. He's young, so he's going to have to learn about the ups and downs. But it is, especially for a season like this, when the Flyers have got all these back-to-backs and they're playing so much hockey, it's so important to have a guy who's playing as well as Brian Elliott is right now, and a goaltender coach in Kim Dillabaugh, who by all accounts is very good at his job. And you can just kind of help Carter Hart reset a little bit. So I think that was very important, just for the rest of the team too. The little break that they had, the 2-week break from all the guys who had COVID, that's the kind of thing that can make a little bit of a big deal too. Like, since coming back, I think Lindblom's looked better than he did before the break, even though he had a touch of COVID, it sounds like. And Giroux came back guns a-blazing. So I think that rest was important for some of these guys, and I think it's going to be tested as we go down the stretch. But certainly, I think any team these days, for a season like this, you got to have 2 goalies who can play, because like we're seeing in Montreal, like that team is like falling off a cliff. And the only thing that's keeping them alive is that Jake Allen's been really good, because Carey Price has been a disaster there recently. So you need to have 2 good goalies, and you need to have one guy that can play a couple games in a row like Elliott did to give the other guy a chance to reset.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to get it together. And I mentioned on the 5 by 5 show that, in our discussion with Kevin Woodley, it's better to have Carter sit down, work on his technical flaws with the coach instead of getting like 80% of them by throwing them out there over and over again. He's a very technical goalie. He's not the one that you want to get into desperation mode and rely on his athleticism. Not that his athleticism is bad. It's just not the best way to maximize what you can get out of him. And Elliott's really done a good job. So, Chef, AV gets his 700th career NHL victory in yesterday's game. And another topic that you can address is Nolan Patrick seems very comfortable on wing. In fact, I'd say he's looked a little bit better.
Yeah, I really liked it. And what I can say for that AV's win, 700th win, I will say this: the last 2 games, and I don't want to take anything away from it either. It was Buffalo. It's one of the lower teams, as of lately, but at least the effort was there for the whole game. They didn't take off periods. It was more than 45 minutes. Seems like they played for this time, so I was happy with that. The effort's getting better each game. Maybe it's just they're playing better. Maybe it's the coaching, but I love that. And the fact that I really like the fact that it's like, are we going to call it the Giroux syndrome? Let's move Patrick to wing too. I just think it's better because I don't think he was. I questioned his defensive assignments before, I think, on the show, and I just think, without the restrictions of having to worry about all that, it seems like he's getting to better spots when he's find the opening areas, let's just say. And I think he played definitely a lot better the last 2 games. Yeah,
I think so. He's more involved. He still hasn't hit the score sheet over the weekend. I don't believe he has, but he definitely was more involved. And just one last thing. We talked about having the crowd in the building. Now imagine, Dan, if there was a near capacity crowd, if there could be in Buffalo, and you see that effort back to back, you would think the Flyers won 3-0 both games in an empty building. This might have been like 6-1, 7-2, with the fans booing them, and because this is like a team in Buffalo, they were spiraling, and this whole thing, they look like it's Quitsville.
I mean, it was not pretty, and Jack Eichel didn't play on Saturday, and then he came back on Sunday, but he might as well have not been playing because, as Keith Jones mentioned on the broadcast, he looked like Pierre-Luc Dubois looked on a couple shifts where he just didn't want to be there. And I don't know if he's was injured or what, but I mean, Eichel didn't look great. And I'm wondering if we're going to have a situation like the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation where I don't think they'd bench him, but they may have to start looking to actually trade him soon because there have been rumors of them trading him, but he's such a great hockey player. It's like, what do you even get back for a guy like that? But it was ugly. I mean, I've never been to a game in Buffalo, but I can tell you this: if the Flyers lost 2 games in a row at home to getting shut out, it would not be pretty in the stands. I mean, they'd be booing by the first intermission in both of those games. So, I think it's going to be a long rest of the season for Buffalo.
I do too. And hang on to that question for DB because he'll be coming up next. So the Flyers have won 3 in a row. As we mentioned before, they have the full squad. We'll have to wait to see if TK is going to be in the lineup tomorrow night. And the other drama, now that they're showing a lot of depth, is who, is going to come out. Is it Bunneman, I guess? What does that mean for Scott Lutton? So, Chef, you got some final questions or comments before we turn it over to DB?
Yeah, you kind of sort of threw it out there. I was going to say, I understand if TK gets back in, who do you pull out? I mean, Bunny has looked pretty good. I'm not saying not pull him, but he's creating turnovers. He's hustling. I like it. So, but it should be interesting to see who's going to make the exit, so to speak. Before the last couple of games with Patty moving the wing, I would have said Patty would have to kind of sit one game and get his bearings back. But who knows now? I mean, once they're starting to gel, you ride the hot streak, so to speak. You don't, there's a quote from Bull Durham. I know it's baseball, but you respect the streak, So, and I think that's what you're going for here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Someone's going to have to come out because TK's got to get going. Look, they're going to have enough games, and there's going to be an injury, whether we like it or not. So we're going to have to be prepared for that. So we'll leave it there. We will be back with Dennis Bernstein from the fourthperiod.com directly. Okay, so we are back, and we have as our special guest from the fourthperiod.com, Hot Stove powered by TFP, Kings of the Podcast. You know him as DB. Dennis Bernstein, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Always great being on O&B and catching up with you guys in Philly. So happy to come on again.
All right, great. Now, you are on with Chef and Dan. And
wow. Full house.
What's
going on, bud?
That's
it. Great to hear you.
That's great.
So we got to start in Montreal because that's some big league news, and we'll work our way back to Philadelphia along the way. Why did he get fired, in your opinion, and what's brewing out there in Montreal?
Okay, so it's never good when the goalie isn't playing well. The $10 million goalie, right? The backup's doing decent. Here's the deal. They making the playoffs last year, Montreal, was a red herring. People forget. They won 19 regulation games. They lost 4 times to Detroit. They played a Pittsburgh team who's lost 9 out of 10 in the postseason. They're about done. And then they go and lose to Philly in 6, right? And then on top of that, the GM gets all full of himself and spends $100 million on players and builds a team that Claude Julien is not fit to coach. I have no problem with the firing. They did themselves a disservice by making the postseason last year in a 24-team lottery, basically. So I think that was the problem, is that you thought Nick Suzuki and Kakanyemi were 1 and 2 centers. Well, like right now, Phil Deneau's back in the number one center hole, and he doesn't have a goal this year. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Bergevin. He spent all that money, went to the owner, said, hey, we have something here. We can just add to it. Guys, they still don't have a number one center. It's not Nick Suzuki. It's not Kakanyemi. It's not Phil Deneau. And I guess Phil Deneau is probably banging his head against the wall because he turned down $30 million over 5 years. Like, he's never going to get that with 8 assists in 20 games, right? So I think that's the challenge. That's the issue. So I don't have a problem with the change behind the bench. I think Claude's won a championship. He's a good man. And obviously you need to speak French to be a coach in Montreal, to deal with the French media. But I think the genesis of all this goes back to last season. They weren't a playoff team. They fooled a lot of people, including the general manager. He spent all that money, and they're still an incomplete team.
So don't let the bubble or sample size fool you into doing
Not
what
even
they did.
fool you. I say if it was a regular season, they would have missed the postseason. The coach would have been whacked. It's as simple as that. But he did great things. The kids are learning from him. He's not equipped to coach a talented team. He never has been. Right? And they never spent the money, so the team looked better than they got because they got propped up by Carey Price. Now Carey Price doesn't play well. They don't have good center play. They're losing games again because they're not winning games 6-5. It's no surprise to me. And again, I don't have a problem with it. Look, people got to learn livings and stuff like that. If they had a normal season, the coach wouldn't have been there. You could have made additions, got a better coach to come in behind the bench. Dumarsh, who knows if he's going to be the right guy or not? So I think it's not that you should have spent the money off that success. You should have changed coaches because this guy's not equipped to coach in this league anymore with this type of kids and this kind of talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely can see that. So what are we, about 6 weeks away from the trade deadline? So do you think there's going to be an early strike for maybe cross-border trades with the, with the amount of time the player's going to have to quarantine or anything like that?
I would hold out until the end. Because if you're a playoff team, let's say it's Edmonton looking to add a defenseman, like I wouldn't want to do it at the end because maybe, look, guys, in North America, things are improving very rapidly. The key there is what does the Canadian government do with the border restrictions? Do they loosen them? Do they loosen them for professional sports? Who knows? I'm not sure. Right. So I would just wait. And if you make the deal the end of the season, if you're a championship team, you're not struggling to make the postseason, right? You're adding to your group to hope to win a cup. So if you're trading for Matthias Ekholm, I would wait till 2 weeks before the trade deadline, make the trade then. And it's like acquiring a player that's out for 2 weeks with an ankle or a knee injury. That's how you have to look at it. If things don't improve, if things are status quo. So I think that the early strike thing, I guess if you're floundering and you want to add that player now, Isaiah, I think you do that. But I think that the big time players, the Bostons, even the Phillies, if Tampa wants to make some ads, Vegas, I think you're going to wait till the end because you know you're going to be in the top four. You know you're going to be playing the postseason and you just need to time it right so you can get those players in for your postseason run.
Gotcha. There's a lot of discussion right now about Jack Eichel along with Matthias Ekholm, but Eichel in particular, from a league-wide standpoint, is an intriguing name. And that situation in Buffalo, as the Flyers fans, and we all saw over the weekend, that's not improving anytime soon.
No, it's not. And look, they don't have the right coach. I don't know who thought he must have fooled. The ownership must love him, right? Because he fooled people in Edmonton for a while, and then they realized that he's not he's not an exceptional coach. It's not working in Buffalo. Jack Eichel, here's the problem: when you let a 22-year-old be the de facto general manager of a team. Because last time I checked, they did trade the Conn Smythe winner a couple seasons ago. Like, would this team be better with Ryan O'Reilly? Yeah, but when you get a kid, it's either me or him. You wind up trading Ryan O'Reilly, who wind up winning a Stanley Cup. I think that's part of the issue. The other part of the issue is if you're trading Jack Eichel, you're going to be trading the best player in the trade. And that usually doesn't work. You usually lose that trade. Like, there's a handful of players you could trade for in this league that you would trade Eichel for and say, okay, there's equal value here. You're not going to get equal value. Does the guy really want out? Who knows? He doesn't have a no movement clause. You could trade him anywhere. You're not going to get back the value that Jack Eichel is. And remember, he's having a bad season. He's got 2 goals. He's a point-a-game player. In an 80-game season, he's 80, 85 with a crappy team. And that's what they were. It's not Jack Eichel. It's Jeff Skinner, who you gave $72 million to. It's a Poso, who you gave 6 over 6 back in the day. Like, that's the problem. And now Kevin Adams is going to learn his lesson. He's going to learn the lessons from the Botterill regime by giving, what, Taylor Hall $64 million, 8 over 8? Are you crazy for a left winger who scored, what, 1 or 2 goals? It doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, I get it. If you're trading Jack Eichel, you better get 4 or 5 assets. It's a rebuild. Then you got to tell your fans it's a rebuild. They were talking playoffs 20 games ago. Now you could see, and you mentioned Isaiah, you watched that team over the weekend. And I know they came back from a little bit of a break of not playing. Like, there's no bite to this team. They don't care. They're skating around in circles. Right. So, yeah, this is incumbent upon Kevin Adams. If he's going to be successful, he's got to be brutally honest with ownership and saying, like, this is not working. I'm going to go try to get a deal for Jack. We're going to be a worse team, but over the long run, we better because, we suggested the fourth period today, the Kings are looking for a defenseman, a left side dynamic defense. It's a hit list. It's not saying the guy's available. But when you're losing with Eichel and Dahlin and all these other, like, nobody's untouchable. You can't tell me, look at that team and say, if Jack Eichel's, like, you can trade Jack Eichel, that you can't trade Rasmus Dahlin. Of course you can. That's BS. So these fans out there that think that they know, and I'm not saying this guy's available, everybody's available. If I'm Kevin Adams, I'm sending out emails to the other 30 GMs and maybe the 32 with the 31 with Francis in Seattle and say, I'm open for business. I want to consider all offers. What do you have to offer? To say this player or that player, when you watch that team play, to think that anybody on that team is untouchable, you're crazy.
Yep, that was utter crap. Chef, I'm going to go to you, and then Dan, you're next. Chef?
Okay. With another vaccine being made available, what do you think of the optics now for the NHL to actually participate, and even the AHL, because we're seeing that in-house seating is starting in Pennsylvania for us, maybe not in Philadelphia yet, but in Pittsburgh and around the other parts of the state. So does that change the optics of everything? And do you think how will that actually get more fans in the seats in time for the playoffs?
I hope it does, Jeff, to be honest with you, because I think we're trending that way, is that more and more. Like, there's indoor dining in New York, I think 25%. We're trending the right way. And I know people talk about variants and worry about that, but if you want to sit there and worry, Chef, every night about the virus, then just stay home and you'll never get sick. But, the rest of us have to live our lives. So I think the key, Chef, is what happens when we get to the Final Four, right? Because at that point in time, you're going to have to cross border to play a Canadian team. So does that mean at that point, do we then do a bubble, or we do a neutral site, or we go to Vegas and play a game? Because remember, Vegas was real close to being one of the bubbles last year.
Yeah.
But then they had the incidents of COVID become more prevalent, and we didn't do that. So I think that's the look. You guys know, you're not only are you podcast, you're hockey fans. This is a different game with fans in the building. It's more different than any other sport in the world. They're so vibrant. I go to Staples Center to watch Kings games. I'm still allowed into the media. To walk through an empty arena is just a crime. It's sad. So I think we're trending in the right direction. I think more and more. Look, when there were fans in Madison Square Garden, I know you go Flyers, guys, but having fans at MSG the other night was just amazing. I got emotional over it. I think that it shows us that after a year, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So it might change optics. It might help with home ice advantage down the path, Chef. I can't tell you that by the time we get to May in the postseason, we'll have 50% or 75%. Depends on the municipality. California, where I live, is a mess still. It's still a ridiculous state that I live in here. Yeah. So it depends on where we are. But I think the J&J news today about not being it can be refrigerated. It'll last 3 months. I think that's great news. The stock market went nuts. So I think we're definitely trending in the right direction. So I would say by the time we get to postseason, when the game's really, really important, hopefully we'll have 25 to 50% capacity in some of these buildings. Do I think we're back to 100%? I don't. I would believe that, at least I believe, and I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, I think by the time we get to next season, October, I think we'll have full arenas again.
Yep. Dan?
So just honing in on the Flyers and possible trades, you mentioned that teams like the Flyers might want to wait until closer to the deadline because you think they might be, view themselves as a lock to make the playoffs. But right now, if you look at the division, you've got 5 teams that are, fairly closely bunched, and only 4 of them are making the playoffs. So to me, you might want to strike a little earlier to try and compete with the Islanders, the Penguins, those teams to see who's going to get those spots. Obviously, Matthias Ekholm's a guy that focus has been on, and it's not definitely ideal for the Flyers because he's left-handed and you'd rather have a right-handed guy to play with Provorov. Exactly. Plus, he's got, another year left on his deal after this one. So you're looking at a scenario where you've got Provorov, Sanheim, Myers, and Ekholm, and you can only protect 3 of them for the draft. So, for the expansion draft. So considering all that, what do you think the level of interest is going to be? And what kind of package do you think it would take for the Flyers to get a guy like Ekholm?
I don't think. Look, Ekholm scored a couple goals the other night, so maybe it went up a little bit. I don't see it as a lot. I don't see Matthias Ekholm as a first-round pick and a prospect type of guy. 2 seconds, maybe. I mean, maybe a little bit more because you have a second and a prospect. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't spend a first-round pick on Matthias Ekholm. I think it's an overpayment because he is what he is. He's a solid defender. He's not a play-driving defenseman. Right? That's Roman Josi in that team, right? So, and I agree with you. I think the left-handed, right-handed issue is not ideal for Philadelphia. And so I think, and not for that. Let's be real here. If there were no Boston Bruins in the league, the Flyers would have 1 regulation loss, right? So I don't think that Chuck has to panic here. I think if you have the right deal at a reasonable price, would you pull the trigger for Matthias Ekholm? Yeah. Is he rushing head first into it? No, but if you listen to the fans, JVR should be, in the AHL before the season started, and look what he's doing, right? So I think that Chuck, you got to be smart here, right? I mean, and again, there is that second year, there is the expansion draft. And it's not a perfect fit, Dan. That's the thing. So to pull the trigger early on Matthias Ekholm, I don't see it. I think that I would rather wait till I'm close to the end. Look, if the bottom falls out and they're 6 points out and they're not playing good defense, it depends how they lose. Like if they would have a little valley here, it depends how they would lose games. If they're not scoring, if Carter Hart's not playing well, then you don't trade for a defenseman. If the defense goes sideways and they fall out and you see 5-on-5 play start to deteriorate and you need that horsepower on the blue line, you might go get him. I just don't see it's a perfect fit. I know there's one rumor that the Nashville was scouting Philly pretty hard, at least the AHL, the Phantoms team. But I don't see it. I would wait on this. I don't think Chuck has anything to do. And I really wouldn't worry about it because if you watch the way the Penguins play, if I'm Philly, I'm not worried right now. I mean, you watch Geno Malkin play. He's going through the motions. Their power play and the penalty kill, special teams are awful. I don't think Pittsburgh – I think Pittsburgh could very likely miss the postseason. So if I was Chuck, I would just wait to make sure I really needed that player to go get him right now. So I wouldn't strike early, but I get your point.
It's very interesting just to follow up, hearing your perspective on this, because it is so different from a lot of – the Flyers fans and I guess some of the reporters that you see. First with the Penguins, so the Flyers have 3 games against them this week. So I think that's going to sort of tell a lot. But when you listen to Flyers fans, the team, to be fair, the team has gotten caved in from a shots and analytics perspective. Right. So before the last 3 games against the Sabres and the Rangers, and a lot of people were kind of saying, man, this team needs to go out and get a guy who can play on the top pair because we don't have anyone who can play with Provorov. And people were debating, like, the assumption with Flyers fans is that, okay, Ekholm is definitely going to take a first-round pick to get him. Then it's what level of prospect? Are we going to have to trade a Morgan Frost, or are we going to have to trade like an Isaac Ratcliffe or someone like that? So to hear you say, like, you think that we could get Ekholm for 2 second-round picks, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, geez, that's like a no-brainer. Like if Chuck Fletcher could get Ekholm for 2 second-round picks, that's a no-brainer. So I don't know where the truth lies, but like Chef, Chef and Isaiah, like what are your guys' notions of like what Ekholm is going to cost? Like if you could do it for 2 second-round picks right now, are you doing that?
Yeah, I would. I would do that in a heartbeat. And guess what? I would probably leave them exposed at the draft, because I don't think anybody would take him. In reality, if you're looking at the draft and you're thinking, if I'm picking if I look at the Flyers roster and I'm honing in on Day, and I got to pick from Ghost or him, I'm picking Ghost because the upside is greater for me, So I think that you could probably get that other year out of him without really worrying about having to protect him.
All right, that's. I'm glad you guys said that. There was DB. I want to engage you on this. See, one of the things from an outside point of view that maybe you don't pick up from the fans here, coming from the Chris Pronger era and not having any real succession plan. And then Hextall comes in, he brings in Provorov, he brings in Myers and Sanheim. And Myers is kind of serendipity because he wasn't even drafted.
Right, correct.
And so they have these young defensemen along with Ghost. Moran was a whiff, but that was a previous general manager. Right. The thing is, not until they brought in Matt Niskanen with some of that veteran savvy, and he can be a nasty SOB who can really play with some testicular fortitude. Did things really come together for their defense? And now that's gone with the unexpected retirement of him. Right. And in Ekholm, we see someone who's actually a little bit nastier to play against than even Niskanen, even though he might not be offensively overall as much of a play driver and as well-rounded. And we're just starving for a guy like that after watching the Flyers having no defensive net front presence most of this year, especially when we play the Bruins. That seems to be so evident. The Bruins always, jam the net anyway. But even in the playoffs and the bubble last year, it's like a crying need. And I think that's why, and I'm glad you're bringing your perspective, but I think that's why people are willing to pay not a king's ransom, but a certain amount for this player.
Well, how would Mark Stahl look on the left side?
Old? Okay.
So how would Ryan Murray look on the left side?
Okay. Maybe I'd be more like in the David Savard territory if we're looking for a facsimile.
Yeah.
He'd be okay.
I mean, there are other options out there that if they're going to demand the first pick, I wouldn't give it to him. I don't see that. I don't see this player being the difference maker on this team to put him over. I don't. I frankly don't.
Okay.
It's just one guy's opinion, right? I mean, if you want to go chase a right D, there's not a lot out there. I get that. So, but I think there are other options that doesn't tie you to another year, and then you have to worry about an expansion draft. And Chef said, like, okay, that might take, they might take Ghost, they might not take Ghost. I just don't see the yawning need that maybe the fans do. I think that this is a good enough team because, again, look how they've played other than playing against Boston. Like right now, I'm like, okay, who's a threat in the division?
But
Boston.
But Boston knocks them all over the ice. The Flyers are a little soft, and I think that's a concern that if they added a little bit of grit on the back line and maybe one of the forwards, like a third line forward, a good player, a productive player, but someone who is someone who will stand up to the Islanders, stand up to the Bruins. Not talking about a fighter. You know what I'm talking about.
No, I know what you're talking about.
It's a problem. It's a problem. This team is relatively soft, and that's a concern. And maybe that's why we overrate. Now, I'm not saying I would necessarily want to throw a first-round draft pick, but if there was ever a year to do it, with the crazy CHL situation, you don't know the real value of a lot of players. This might be the year.
Yeah, it very well could be. I'll throw out another name. A guy like David Savard, who's a right shot, who's got 1 year left. I mean, he's a walk-away free agent. Columbus is going nowhere.
Yeah,
they may be falling out of it. They're a disaster. There's a player that positionally would give you that sandpaper, and you wouldn't have to worry about, does he really fit on the other side? And look, we can debate, like if a left D can play right side or whatever. Is it that easy, that hard? A guy like Ekholm, who isn't that skilled at coming playing off his backhand the whole time, I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'm not saying that he wouldn't add. I'm not saying he's a bomb. Don't get me. I would be careful about overpaying for that player, and I might look at other less costly options than a first-round pick because, again, that's a pick that you might be able to use for other currency down the line.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Chef, I'm going to go to you in a second. Just one more question. Well, is there any scuttlebutt about the rebounding of Shane Gostisbehere? Has he built up a little bit more credibility as an asset throughout the league? Or it's too small a sample size?
Yeah, it's too – well, let's put it this way. I can't skate. If I play with Provorov, I'm going to look good too. Okay, so when you play him, when he's always going to look good playing with Provorov, it's just the term, like the 2 more years. And Chef's right. He would be great for Seattle. I agree. That would be the guy who would be great for Seattle because he's not at the bottom where he was, right? His reputation has gotten a little bit better. Is it recency bias because he's playing with Provorov? Yeah, of course it is. But that's why you scout That's why you have scouts. That's why you look at video. Why you. It's just the 2 years at 4-5 in a flat cap era. I think that's the hurdle at this point in time, because you got to be, if you're a scout, Isaiah, you got to be dead sure that Gostisbehere can produce at that level. You're going to commit to that money for 2 more years. And is it because he got, boost from playing Provorov, or is he now got his game straightened out? I don't really know. And they're playing with a great team. And again, if it's Seattle, he's going to be a top pair defenseman in Seattle, I would assume. Is he a top pair defenseman? No, not anymore. So that's the question. But yeah, I think his reputation has been enhanced from where it was. Is it recovered to where he was back in the day? No, it absolutely isn't.
Gotcha, Chef.
Well, I just wanted to throw into the mix there that the situation is somewhat, like, to Isaiah's defense, the situation is somewhat, desperate. I mean, like, we are looking for that man that can clear the porch, so to speak, in front of Hart. I mean, and also too, I mean, they're starting to cheer Haig, for God's sakes, and so it's getting desperate in Philly. But my next question is, because you had brought up with the divisions, how much of a chance do you think that we're going to see, maybe when things go back to normal with the league, that some of these realignments stick? I mean, the animosity that it's creating and some intensity in these games. I mean, this is some of the best non-playoff hockey I've seen in years.
Yeah, but Chef, I'll give you the example that I always use. Did they change the playoffs once we get back? Are there 16 teams going to play this season? Remember, everybody all the big guys, all the big dogs were saying, oh, they're going to expand the playoffs. Nope, they're not going to expand the playoffs. They're not going to change the realignment, and here's why. Gary Bettman and Bill Daly still believe in a balanced schedule. They still believe there's value in a team coming into everybody's building once a season. I don't think so. But here's the flip side of that, Jeff. I've been joking about this. I get your point, and here's the counterpoint. Do you really want to see that 7th Anaheim-San Jose game this year?
You're true to your point. There you go.
Okay? I mean, that's it. You want to see Ottawa and Vancouver for that 9th time? That's the flip side of it. I get it. Look, the intensity is there. When you see Jordan Binnington come off the ice in San Jose taking swings at 3 guys, that's great. That's awesome, right? The Kachucks are never going to fight each other. So, yeah, I get your point. We did this because of the travel situation in the borders. So I just think we're going to go back. I think before the pandemic hit, Jeff, this game was in really good shape. It was competitive. Yeah. The playoffs are like the thing. And the thing about it, Chef, it don't matter how you play the playoffs. It's going to be awesome. They're going to be freaking awesome. They're going to be intense. Yeah. Philly and Pittsburgh out of the box. Would that be cool? Yeah. But no matter what you do and how you scale it and how you position it, when those 16 teams go, that first round, it's better than March Madness, right? So to me, it doesn't need fixing. I get it. I think it's cool that the Ducks and Kings play 8 times. I get it. But when you have the lesser teams playing each other, they're like, oh, geez, not another Minnesota-St. Louis game, which, except for those markets, doesn't have a lot of currency.
Gotcha. So I got to ask you about a player I'm rooting for on the LA Kings. His name's Gabe Velarde. He's had to overcome, I guess, was a congenital lumbar issue. And now he's in the league. How's he doing?
Yeah. He's doing great. Look, he's their 2C right now, right? Here's the challenge with Gabe. He's an unusual cat. Like, he thinks differently, right? And so he comes in early in the season, and his face-off percentages were really low, probably around 38%. And he got up there and said, yeah, I don't really practice face-offs because you're either bad or you're good at it. And then, Todd McClellan heard that. And I'm sure after that day he said that, he was practicing 100 face-offs a day. You can't say that. It's like, I mean, Connor McDavid was like 42 or 43% face-offs. People criticize him. Now he's at 50%. He's over 50%. Yeah, you have to work on face-offs. And the crime about saying that from Gabe's standpoint is that he's got Jarrett Stoll here as a development coach who used to win like 56% of his face-offs.
Yeah.
Like, so I think what happened with Gabe was, like, first of all, relief from all the 18 months of, is he going to play? He fell in the draft. We're not sure he's healthy. What's going on with Gabe? Why isn't he on the ice? That was one challenge. Okay, Isaac. And then the second issue was he came in the league, scored in his first shot, 7 points in 10 games, And Todd said it a couple of weeks ago. It's not that easy. And he's learning. He has a long way to go. To be a 2C in this league, you really have to have a 200-foot game. It's not there yet. And the other thing, which baffles me, from a guy who was a big-time scorer in juniors, he doesn't shoot the puck 5-on-5. He averages one shot a game 5-on-5. And Isaiah, he's got a wicked shot. Like I'm now sitting. I'm not in the press box anymore. I'm at the top of the upper bowl at Staples Center. And a power play against Columbus, he wound up, and the goalie didn't have a chance. Like, he's got a tremendous shot, not only a slapper, but a wrist shot. He's got a powerful shot. He's a big kid. He's 6'3". He gained 15 pounds over the summer. Like, he doesn't shoot the puck. Now, maybe he's being deferential to guys like Kempe. I don't know why it would be. Or Jeff Carter on his line. I think that's the part. He needs to be more aggressive with his shot. Like, he has all the tools. I think they're going to keep him in play. Now, look, they do want a top-pair defenseman and an elite 25-year-old or less defenseman. Could it be Gabe that they use as currency? I don't think so. It's probably going to be Alex Turcotte. But he shows there are glimpses, Isaiah, of the greatness of this player. He had one shift against St. Louis. He fended off 3 players and held the puck, passed it, didn't wind up in a goal. So there's a lot of good to look at it with Gabe Velarde. He just has to be a lot more aggressive trying to find his shot on offense before I can deem him like a legitimate number 2 center in this league.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the long run, it's a good thing that he said that out loud because he learned a lesson.
Yeah.
And that's, how do you learn? He might have been thinking that all along and just kind of lumbering. And you got a great example with Andrzej Kopitar. How do you play the game? Well, just watch this guy. Watch a lot of video of that guy, and you're going to be really good. But
yeah, and I said that's why I keep stumping for Byfield to be recalled here and play with the big team. If he doesn't even play, just to put him, scratch him, because you're going to learn and practice with Kopitar 2 or 3 times a week, as opposed to the team in Ontario is 1-8-1. Like, how is it going into a losing situation where a team is trying to establish themselves as an AHL team? How is that more beneficial for Byfield than just, even if you're not going to play, practicing against, Velarde, who's, a couple of years ago, and against Kopitar, learning from Kopitar? I don't get it. I understand it. I know they don't want to burn the first year ELC, which I don't believe in anyway. Yeah. But I think that's it. I think that the core 5 they have here, like, you want to bring your youngsters up and have them play for the reasons that you talked about. Not only have a great, especially if you're a center, not only have Jarrett Stoll, who played the defensive side of the game, but you have Andrzej Kopitar, who, look, he's not going to win the MVP. Connor McDavid is, but he's having an MVP type season. So I think that it would be beneficial. And that's what happened. I'm sure that not only the coach and his coaching staff went to Gabe, I'm sure Kopi said, hey, what are you talking about? I'm the Selke winner. You got to win faceoffs in this league. It's very, very important for puck possession.
Absolutely. Chef?
Okay, so since we talked about the trades and the deadline and all that stuff, I have to ask this because, in my opinion, I don't think there's going to be anything huge. But right. Is there any chance with the cap situation, the isolation, if you're going to go over across borders, sure, is there going to be any big blockbuster trades before this deadline, or is this just a go with the flow year?
I don't look. Here's the deal. I think there'll be blockbuster trades because look what Nashville did. Nashville said we're protecting three players we're not going to trade. Right? You got Philip Forsberg. Like, this guy's a 30-goal scorer who drives play. Like, his advanced stats are off the. If I'm any team, I want Philip Forsberg on my team. You mentioned Ekholm. Like that. That's another guy who could be traded. A guy like Granlund. Right? So I think that they're around a certain team, Chef, there should be activity because, look, I thought they never should have fired Laviolette. And John Hines has not done anything. I think what's going to happen in Nashville is they're going to kick Poyle upstairs. They're going to bring in a new GM to help that because when you look at that team, you could have 3 legitimate players off this team: Ekholm, Granlund, and Philip Forsberg. But to have Philip Forsberg available at his age, he's 26 years old. Yeah, he gets banged up a little bit, but I think so. Do I think there's going to be this huge – look, Jeff, here's the deal. You wake up on trade deadline day and you turn on NHL Network or TSN or Sportsnet, and what happens? You're always friggin' disappointed because it's never the big trade. So what happens, Jeff, and what's been happening in the last couple of years? Nobody waits till deadline day, like Dan mentioned. That you might have a trade 2 or 3 weeks out, right? And look, not for nothing, if Buffalo really wants to offer Taylor Hall $55-60 million, I'd sign it in a second. I think they wind up trading him, so I think that's another big name that could go out the door, right? So that's it. And look at the Ducks. Like, what did they do with Raquel? What did they? None of worse was about Hampus Lindholm. Like, what happens with Brian Getzlaf? They say he doesn't want to move. He was on at least Southern California, but he's never winning a cup in Anaheim. They're so far away. So I don't think it's going to be a big deadline day. I think certain teams like Nashville and Anaheim, I think there's pressure on the GMs to make deals, to do something, because if you watch those two teams play, they're certainly not contenders. So do I think there's going to be some en masse movement? No. Remember, hard cap, border restrictions, but I think we'll see some big names move by the time we get to the deadline.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the teams here that could be active. You said earlier, you referred to Columbus, and that coach is on shaky ground. I think this is probably his last year. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, he says he's not worried about job security because he doesn't look like he wants to coach anymore. So, yeah, Isaiah, I just think that what happened with Dubois, and then when Alani comes in, I know, I get it. You're not supposed to loaf and stuff like that. But you have to be able to coach these players better. It's a different world. Like I mentioned, Claude Julien, it's not my way or the highway anymore. It doesn't work like that. Like these two players, Isaiah, they got their way with no leverage. They're on their second deals. They're on their bridge deals. They don't have any leverage. Right. Their only leverage was to sit out. Yet they now look, perfect storm, right? You trade one guy for the other. But again, I think Tortorella, when you watch his response, when you watch how he deals with these talented players, the Domi thing isn't working out. He's got 3 goals in 22 games. I think, and not only that, what I'm hearing is that the GM is separating himself from Tortorella. Tortorella doesn't have a contract for next season. He could go somewhere else. I think John I think he needs a break, and he has to reassess if he can really teach or coach these type of players, these talented players in this league. So I don't expect him to be renewed in Columbus. I think he's out the door.
Right, gotcha. One more from me. People talk a lot about the disappointment in Vancouver, but you mentioned there's a lot of disappointment also in Calgary too, and there actually might be more action in terms of trades out west in Calgary.
Yeah, I think there's a situation where I think, how long have we talked about Johnny Gaudreau as a trade target? I think, you'd want to keep the center, Sean Monahan, as opposed to Johnny Gaudreau. So I think that's it. And they've underachieved. They signed the goalie for big money. It really hasn't worked out. They imported half the Vancouver Canucks. That hasn't worked out, right? I mean, they brought in Tanev. They brought in Markstrom. It just hasn't worked. So I think that with respect to Calgary, a guy like Sam Bennett, who's a gritty guy, could he wind up like in a place like Toronto? I think so. So there are guys that could be dealt away from Calgary because they've really underachieved, Isaiah. I think but with me, and I think Chef used this word, they're a soft team to me. Other than Matthew Tkachuk, they've got no bite. Who's scared of playing Calgary? So I think they need a facelift. I think certainly Johnny Gaudreau will get them multiple assets. He's still a dangerous player. I just think that the crew that they've run with here, and they've made some changes. They brought in Hanifin. It just hasn't worked, to be totally honest with you. So I would think there'd be significant changes in Calgary. They just named Jeff Ford the coach last season, so I don't think it's going to happen there. I think Triveling is fine there. But I just think that team needs a facelift. If they're going to finish 6th or 7th in that division, or 6th, they'll hopefully finish ahead of Ottawa. But I think at this point, I think that just this mix of players isn't working. They're either a little bit too old or just not enough grit and not enough toughness on that team.
Yeah, you don't want to finish below Ottawa. No. Well, TB, man, again, super thanks for coming on. Where can people find you on social media and other platforms?
Sure. You can find me everywhere, actually. No, Dennis TFP for The Fourth Period on Twitter. I do have the same handle for Instagram. Post some Instagram stories there. TheFourthPeriod.com. We just came out with our top 30 trade list today, and now we have video content on YouTube at The Fourth Period. Me and Dave did a speculation piece about who the Kings might want to put on their hit list with respect to finding that defenseman. And we do a couple of other segments called Dirty Data, where we bring Aaron Ward and Short Kelly in, and they do a deep dive into analytics, which is really good. So it's a lot of fun. We just launched it. SiriusXM, actually tomorrow I'll be hosting the Power Play with Steve Koulias from 3 to 6 Eastern, the entire show. You can tune in them. I'm usually on the discussion room on Fridays from 5 to 6 with Cool and somebody else. with Cool and usually another host. It's either Mike Rupp or Morton Biron. And then on Saturdays, Hot Stove, 11 a.m., 1 p.m. Eastern, Channel 91, Sirius XM. So we're like the virus. We're everywhere right now.
Excellent. And don't forget, on demand, if you missed it, the Hot Stove powered by TFP. If you have the Sirius app, you go on demand. You could fetch that because the stuff is timely, at least for a couple weeks until things change around.
And if you're not subscribed, subscribe today. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. DB, thanks again, man.
Boys, always a pleasure. Always great being on O&B. Thanks for the time.
You bet.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun with DB. It was interesting to hear his perspective. I mean, the local perspective, Dan, is that Ekholm will fetch a first-round draft pick. Even Bill Meltzer was saying that with Jason Martinez. So that's interesting.
I think people are assuming it's a given that he's going to cost a first-round pick, and the question is whether or not you're going to have to add in a top-tier prospect like a Frost or a Brinker if you're going to be able to get it done with like a lower-tier prospect like Ratcliffe or Lazinski or Wade Alice. Yeah. And I hearing Dennis talk about 2 second-round picks is I'd probably music to everyone's ears here, because I feel like every single Flyers fan would rubber stamp that in a second. So which makes me take pause. Like maybe Dennis is right about Ekholm. Maybe he's not as good as we think. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and the thing is, that situation in Nashville has been going downhill since they made that Stanley Cup final appearance. They just haven't been the same. And they put a lot of effort and assets into underachievers like Ryan Johansson, and then they doubled down on Matt Duchene, who only woke up in his contract year. Oh, we got to have Duchene. Oh, we got to have this guy, but at least Duchene is a center. But, I mean, you look at some of these contracts and the age of the player, it's just Taylor Hall, buyer beware. He's injured a lot. I love the guy when he's on his game. But he had that 1 year, had maybe another year or two where he was really good. But he's like 31 now. He's going to be 32, going into a free agent year. Just time out. Philip Forsberg, that's a whole different situation. I'd be very interested in him. I like Ricard Raquel. He wouldn't cost a lot. He's not having a great year. But again, you're talking about a depressed situation. But again, those aren't the kind of players I'm looking to add up front. If I was to add up front, but that's just me. Ekholm, in spite of what he said about him, knowing the makeup of this team, I think he would add a good element, but only as long as he could play on that right side. Because then you have to question what the fit is. He's got to be playing in the top four. It's probably not a good trade, and maybe he's right. Maybe someone like David Savard would be a better acquisition, pending UFA, and he brings some sandpaper they definitely could use.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to give up that much more for him. But again, then I start asking the question, and obviously I got to watch these guys a little bit more. But is Savard, how much better is he than Braun adding sandpaper
his possession numbers are actually pretty good until this year, and his deployment is like 55% plus defensive zone starts. So I think would be an upgrade over Braun. How much? I don't know.
It would, okay, in this case, let me play devil's advocate there. If you think you could get him and it would be an upgrade from Braun, and what would you be willing to get rid of, though? I mean, is it that much of an upgrade to be worth a second-round pick or a prospect or something like that? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they'd want Robert Haig or something. He blocks shots.
Yeah.
He's younger.
Yeah, he's the only grittiness that is on that blue line right now.
But he'd be look, Savard over Haig or Braun, I believe would be an upgrade. I think Ekholm is better, and I think it probably would be worth it, particularly if DB has a better handle on what his overall value is.
I agree with you. He's a better upgrade. Are you just talking about a straight up swap then? Is that what you'd be leaning to?
Well, you're talking about Savard for Haig. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Yarmo would be up for that. I'd do that in the New York Minute. Dan?
Okay. Yeah. If that's the case, then yeah.
I mean, I would think so. But now again, we're talking about. I haven't seen him play a lot this year, so it's like it's hard for me to answer these questions. I mean, I honestly haven't seen Ekholm play this year. Like, they're hard questions to answer. You kind of have to trust that Fletcher's going to make a trade. And when, Chef's talking about, would we have to give up a second round pick? Like, I don't think any Flyers fans give a flying about trading a second round pick if there's a guy who's going to give us a better chance of winning a cup this year, right? Like, I just don't know who's that guy. So it's we need to improve the team, and I'd love to get Ekholm, and I'd trade a first round pick and a mid-tier prospect for him. And maybe that's too much, but I really, at this point, I want this team to go after the cup this year. And I'm going to start having some hesitations if we're talking about trading a first round pick and a guy like Brink or Frost or Zamula or York. Like, I don't really want to do that, but first round pick and mid-tier prospect, sure.
I agree. Yep.
Yep.
I mean, we've had these assets. We have so many mid-six players or players that at least project toward that. I'm down with it. And like I mentioned earlier, this year there are going to be bargains on the board at the draft because the evaluation process was skewed because of what happened with the CHL this year. So if you're ever going to do it, I think it's a good time to do it. And with that, let's remind people about our second sponsor tonight, Jim's South Street. Jim's South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia. 40 years of the best cheesesteaks, hoagies, fries you'd ever want in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. And don't worry, if you're in the area, but you can't make it over, they work with DoorDash, so this delicious food will be delivered right to your door, and it's really with or without. Jim's South Street at 400 South Street in Philadelphia is where you want to go for that next cheesesteak. So check them out.
Can they get one to DC in the next hour? Because Jim's is my favorite cheesesteak in Philly, and I could really use one in DC tonight.
I wish we could. If you call DoorDash and see if they have an out-of-state program, I don't know what to tell you. I know I got to get down there, or close enough at least to get a DoorDash. But yeah, Jim South Street, 400 South Street. Tell them FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast sent you over. And gents, we're going to wrap it there. We talked earlier about how the Flyers are going to play 3 games, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Saturday's in the afternoon, scheduled for 1 o'clock, in Pittsburgh. And then, like Dan mentioned, Sunday the 7th, so that's a back-to-back, versus the Capitals. Then they come back home on the 9th to play the enthusiastic Buffalo Sabres. But they are beaten. They are mentally beaten down. But I think we're probably going to have a show on Monday the 8th. So we'll talk about these 4 games. Dan, why don't you start things off by telling people your maybe a final thought and where people can catch up to you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great week with the 3 games against the Penguins and the game against the Caps. So I'm really looking forward to it, seeing what happens, see if the Flyers go after Ekholm. It's going to be fun. Going to be a really fun next few weeks. People can find me on Twitter at dsilver88, and throw me a follow, argue with me, whatever you want. I can take it.
Absolutely. Chef?
Hey, you can reach me at Chef to the Left B on Twitter, Chef number 2 to the left. So, yeah, you can find me there. I'll interact left and right.
Excellent. And I'm Isaiah, ISAIAH, Isaiah _ don't forget the _ 520. And of course, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck on Twitter. We have a Facebook page. We're also on Gab, trying to reach as many people as we can. And of course, if you could subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcast, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, so many. And of course, on YouTube, if you hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so every time a new show comes out, you'll be kept up to date. And if you could rate and subscribe, those 5-star reviews are really appreciated. And also it helps move us up the charts for people that are looking for Philadelphia Flyers podcast. And with that, till next week, everybody take care.